I'm happy to follow my colleagues and the sentiments that have been shared. As many of you know, it's just a few weeks ago I spoke here about pluralism. I said that we're a nation that honors freedom of religion, not freedom of religion, not from religion. I said that I take pride in the community as a place where we all come to the table, where we can have dialogue, and I celebrated interfaith respect and engagement that I had worked to build over the course of months together, where folks don't feel afraid. This is a place where we can confront courageously the differences that we come with to that table, and that diversity is something we welcome for that purpose. I hear those students who feel afraid. I have heard your emails to the community, to my constituents, who feel targeted. I hear those who feel silenced and who want to take a stance. I understand on a deeply human level the pain and the anguish people are feeling abroad and the helplessness that people feel here today, who have family in the region, who have ties, or just have a personal connection. I know it's difficult to discuss what's so personal, and it's important to acknowledge in the last 11 days, 12 Israelis have been killed, and 213 Palestinians have lost their lives. And according to the UN reports, nearly 2,000 people have been injured and 90,000 have been displaced. We teach our kids about this conflict, and we have to model how to have these conversations. I understand that for many Jewish families, my constituents, that they share a deep and sacred relationship with Israel, and especially in the context of a difficult history and marginalization. It presents a safe haven to prevent what so many are afraid of happening again. That's something I can empathize with and is my duty to. The concept is existential, and anything that diminishes that feels no less than a threat. I hear the community's pain in that, and I've been grateful to hear from many constituents and neighbors who have reached out and whom I've been able to listen and dialogue with, and I want to continue to listen. The loudest thing I want to be heard today is that I want to listen. I want us to have dialogue and conversation and to be able to empathize with one another, because that is how we move forward and that is how we grow. And that it's okay for us to disagree and to come with different perspectives and to feel strongly about those perspectives, but that we have to leave those places open in our hearts to discuss it and to see the humanity in those before us. We must not forget that we can fight both anti Semitism and oppression against the Palestinians and against all those experiencing it together at the same time. No doubt, I stand strongly against anti Semitism. I take that very seriously and personally, because I know what it's like to experience marginalization, and that parallel experience for me makes that experience personal. And I will not stand for that so long as I am on this board, so long as I am alive. Demanding justice for the Palestinians and condemning state violence is not anti-Semitism, and we can have those conversations. And I know that there are folks who feel differently, and we can talk about that and understand one another. Anti-Semitism is a real and growing threat that must be addressed in our schools, our county, and our world. And conflating the criticism with that only harms those of us seeking to advance justice and diverts our focus from the real issues at hand. We must choose to step up and to ensure that we don't allow those seeking to sow hate and division to capitalize on our disagreement and our differences and points of view. We can and must fight these things together: anti-Semitism, racism, Islamophobia, and especially that which is couched as a response, oppression of all kinds together. And in fact, our common humanity demands it. If I'm to be an honest representative of the people and someone who speaks out against injustice, I must acknowledge the voices and experiences of all of my constituents, while also uplifting the voices of those who have not been heard. I must speak the truth and ensure we educate our children in a way that prevents us from perpetuating oppression in the future, that we may learn from what's happening and do better here at home. Equity, racial, economic, social, faith equity isn't and shouldn't ever be a political issue, and social justice can be separated for those who are impacted by its effects. It requires our full humanity and calls on each of us to learn and grow individually and collectively. While I can have challenging conversations with community members, with colleagues, at the end of the day, They are my sisters and they are my brothers. And I say by name that Melanie and Laura Jane are my sisters. And so are Megan and Stella and Ricardi and Elaine. And Karen and Tammy and Rachna and Carl are my siblings, and we have to strive together to lead and show the community how we can have these conversations. We teach our kids about these things. We continue to model for them what it looks like to have radical empathy while also speaking truth to power and standing up for justice. I continue to work on these things. I want to be able to have these conversations, and I do want to have the humility as well to be able to empathize properly. And I understand that in my own understanding, I'm growing, and we all are constantly developing in how we relate to one another, and we're negotiating space in the conversation. I continue to work to ensure that we have a more inclusive learning environment for each of our students. I had shared with many of you the beginnings of my vision to set in place accountability mechanisms to be very loud and clear for those who have misunderstood and in the cloud and confusion of everything that has happened. That I take my representation of you and every single one of you, including my Jewish students and families and staff, very seriously. And I understand that words are words, but the months of my efforts, I hope, will speak to that, and the future efforts will continue to. I'm currently focusing my efforts to work collaboratively on improving the division's religious accommodations policy. It actually so happened to be coincidental that I look forward to my roundtable with faith leaders this weekend. I am looking forward to continuing my work on inclusive curriculum, where we can teach our children to have these courageous conversations. And as always, I invite our entire community's engagement and partnership. Rest assured that I fight for your child. I look forward to continued meaningful conversations and work to better our school system and our world by upholding truth and having empathy. And I also want to recognize that just this past week was the anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education and Plessy versus Ferguson, which were stains in our own country's past and which call upon us to take bold social justice positions. When Plessy versus Ferguson maintained segregation in this country, until Brown versus Board, when that was reversed, of course, and now we live with that legacy that once upon a time in our nation we had segregated schools, and we have moved past that. And that was only possible through courageous conversations and through confronting what we had experienced and welcoming varied points of view and uplifting those voices who have not been heard. I want to congratulate our graduating seniors. It's very exciting to be joining for graduations in the coming weeks. And I hope that they'll go on to be leaders who can learn from what's going on in their community, abroad, and the conversations. It's particularly interesting to me that just today, a ceasefire was announced. And I hope that that can also be an opportunity for us now to say we will do better. We will lead forward in a way that is different. It's coincidental that I also am speaking to a combating intolerance class tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to hearing from students and having them engage. And I hope that we always remember that what brings us together is far deeper and far more powerful than anything that will set us apart. And these are not just words. Our shared experiences, our experiences of grief, of joy, our appreciation for family and friendship. These are deep human experiences that nothing can take away the bonds that develop from that. And our ability to come together and have those disagreements and learn from one another. So I look forward to learning, to listening, and I hope that folks will engage in the same good faith. And I hope that our students will listen and learn and lead forward differently. And I hope that we continue learning together by giving each other the benefit of the doubt, by having open hearts and minds, by empathizing with one another, and by continuing the dialogue.